And action.
The Star Wars reported. Sorry?
The Star Wars Reporter podcast.
Got it. Or you are watching.
Yeah. Action. The Star Wars Reporter podcast.
Right. The Star Wars Reporter podcast you are watching. Where's my $50?
And welcome to the Star Wars Reporter podcast, episode 97, here Thursday night, the greatest night because we are here. And today, it's been a while. I've been looking forward to doing podcast on Tales of the Jedi, the superior storytelling of Lucasfilm animation. But before we get to that, let's introduce these fine gentlemen this way and this way, starting with the Dark Lord himself in red.
Ooh,
Darth Slobo.
Happy to be back again. Should be a great topic of conversation. Trooper Todd, I thought you were going to force choke me there for a second with your hood down.
No. I'll wait till after the podcast. You're necessary right now. So when you use your usefulness, then maybe.
And of course, the going to be force choking Trooper Todd. You know, in some places, people pay for that.
They do. I'm so far watching the Tales of the Jedi and watching Andor. I'm appreciating the behind the scenes look of the dark side, which we don't usually get to see in the movies. So I'm really enjoying a lot of the dark side themes.
Totally, and we can't forget our gracious host, Wookiee Steve.
Oh yeah, Wookiee Steve, come on.
Oh yeah. I didn't want to make myself big because we're having a hard enough time getting people to stay. I don't want to scare them away. So, according to my wife, that is.
According to your wife, yes. Well,
according to my wife. So
you do have one of the best backgrounds. So I'm falling behind. I still got to hang stuff up back here.
You got a nice white wall. What are you talking about? That's really nice.
Yeah.
It looks like we're interrogating him, or he's like giving testimony or something. So
I should figure out this StreamYard a little better. I can probably superimpose the cockpit of the Millennium Falcon behind me or something.
You could.
Probably
your background is good for it, but your last background before your move again made Todd and I look like nerds, and you were like studying us. So all the academic stuff behind you, books and stuff without pictures, books without pictures.
Yeah.
So yes. So actually, I wanted to start with the trailer. Let's have a look at the trailer for Tales.
Let's go with the trailer
of the Jedi, and then we'll get going. What's going on? Let me just share that. Sorry, they changed everything. It looked like in StreamYard for me here. So.
Oh, wonderful! It must have done an upgrade and didn't inform you.
Yeah, gotta love the updates.
Let me take the closed
caption
off.
Everywhere there is life, but you must face death. Honor it. Do not fear it. Jedi. Ahsoka is Jedi.
The best way I can protect you is to teach you how to protect yourself.
Master Dooku.
I want to bring peace and order to the
He'll take
galaxy.
that part.
Master, stop!
It is is the only way you will truly have victory.
My Padawan. Again. Again. Dooku, stand down.
I'm tired of fighting.
I've been warning them about the coming darkness. Let's hope all that training pays off. And who might you be?
Very nice.
So
Amazing.
have everybody had a chance to get caught up and watch all the episodes?
Oh yes.
There's only 8, right?
Oh yeah.
There's 6, right?
Well, 6.
Six.
There's only 6?
8.
There's
Sorry.
6.
Did I miss out on
Sorry.
2?
You're like, I was freaking.
No.
I was freaking myself out. I'm like, what?
Sorry, there's only I was 6 or 8. I couldn't quite remember. I watched them all. I watched 3 and then I watched 3, and so I just got confused. I get confused very easily, guys.
That's okay. You know, when you turn to the dark side.
So first, I want to talk about this is a simple fact that how the steps, the technology, just everything, the resources go into the animation stuff compared to when it first started. Like say Clone Wars, which was kind of a revolutionary type TV show, to what they're doing now, like night and day. Just technology gets better with the computer animation stuff, right? But man, did everything look gorgeous. I just the textures of the planets, the fields, the trees, you name it, everything looked good. Like when the Count Dooku one and young Qui-Gon one were on that planet where the corrupt senator, right, sort of thing, and just how it just looked dark and gloomy and desolate, and just thank you, Steve. Yes, like
Oh
just
yeah.
everything. Like you've been talking about this everything, Steve, from Book of Fett to Mandalorian to Obi-Wan, about how they establishing shots that just show off the environment. Again, they did another great job in this series, just really giving the audience a chance to feel the environment that people are in or these characters are in, right? And it's just a beautiful stage it's set for the audiences to get sucked into whatever story they were trying to tell.
Absolutely. Like thinking back to that first animated feature film, Star Wars: The Clone Wars, thinking about how far Lucasfilm animation has come since that. Like this was absolutely phenomenal, Todd. I agree with you 100%. It was gorgeous.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to animation, right, you need to start off with the visual element, right? If you can't hook your audience visually, then it's going to be hard to draw people in. But right away from the trailer we just showed, like you can see how it's just a visually stunning, and the imagery is so strong and so vibrant, or gloomy, whatever move they're trying to set. Like even when the Padme is going down, they're recreating the events of after Revenge of the Sith, right? And Padme's going to walk down, and just the shot of all the people, and then just again you feel it. You thank you again, Steve. Good job. Like it just really conveys the location. Look at that, right? Look at the scape. It's Naboo, but Naboo looks dark. It's in sorrow. It's in it's in pain. It's suffering because of the loss of their senator, right? It's just they do such a great job of painting that emotion on screen.
Do you know what? I noticed too. It's really interesting with Padme, and someone to point this out to me. Did you notice that she's pregnant there? They probably did that for a reason, to make it look like the children died too.
Is that like that in the movie though, or is that
It
something
is?
fit?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So I never paid attention, right? I saw the prequels when they first came out, and I never even noticed until someone had pointed out. They even included that.
I didn't even notice that. But again, very subtle. They didn't have arrows pointing to it. It's very subtle, but wow, I didn't.
That's something that stuck out to me too. Like for two reasons. Well, first, I'm sure you guys know, having kids, the body doesn't go back to its, normal shape immediately either. And she had just given birth too,
Mhm.
right? So
I mean,
my
mine
first
still
thought
looks
was
like
like,
I'm 9 months
okay,
pregnant. So
it still
Mine's
looks
ruined
like
too.
it still looks like, that it just happened. They're making
yes.
it very, anatomically correct, so to speak. But then I heard that too, as someone pointing that out, and there was an analysis. I guess in the novelization of Revenge of the Sith, that was a conscious decision to make her look pregnant. That Yoda made that decision to make the public believe that the baby, because they still thought it was one at that point, had gone as well.
Right. So, yeah, no, you're like what you were saying, Todd, about how the animation just is evolving and getting better as time goes on. When the film came out, it was like, oh wow, this is really cool. And then when Clone Wars came out, it was even better. And then as time went on, Rebels, it was even better than that. The Bad Batch, all this kind of stuff. And this, there's something about it where it seems smoother than even the Bad Batch. So it just some of the characters like Dooku and stuff like that, they just look way smoother.
Oh, I just want like my favorite character in all episodes. Well, Ahsoka was amazing. I thought the look behind to see more about Dooku, because really Dooku just showed up and we didn't know anything about him. There was
Yeah.
no backstory. There was no nothing. So I remember as a viewer, and you're like, okay, I was just thrown into this character. I don't know who he is. It's not set up very well, and I wasn't really wowed by him, right? But now you're looking back and you see these backstories, just makes that character just so much stronger. And just even like they're using what 3 of the 6 episodes, and just how much his character changed from one to the next, right?
Oh yeah.
Really amazing. Again, we're talking your title page said it, amazing storytelling. Some of the best storytelling ever. Like that first episode with the young Qui-Gon with that dark senator, they're not evil, or just this guy who's taking advantage of his population. They go down there to help rescue the son who's been kidnapped, right? And
Right.
just how that whole thing just escalated, right? And then Dooku just kind of lost control, right? And was choke holding the guy and throws Qui-Gon away, with the force push, and like just wow. Like I remember watching going, this is so intense, more intense than any other episode I've ever seen that's been animated through Lucasfilms. Like it was so intense. Like I was sitting there, I was like the Ahsoka one, and she's reaching out and she's all alone. And she touches it's just that whole connection with the animal. I was tearing up, even right. Even this, like it was so intense with Dooku strangling, and he's like, "Master, stop!" And it's like, wow, just like amazing, just character
Does it not
development.
seem familiar? Does it not seem familiar in how someone else fell just differently? It's like Palpatine's kind of shtick, how he gets to people, and he obviously got to Dooku first at a certain point, right? And then Dooku had the same thoughts about the Jedi. And I'll just say this here: Dooku and Anakin were absolutely right about the Jedi and what they were
Absolutely.
doing and the corruption. And what's the line I wrote down I thought was the best thing? He's like, how did he word it? He said, the Jedi blindly served a corrupt Senate that fails the republic it represents. Which, we could say that about politicians today, right? But and I think Jen's even said this, the whole downfall of the Jedi and how they became kind of like they kind of lost their way is when they started wearing armor and taking military ranks and leading troopers into battle and stuff. That wasn't the Jedi way, but it was their arrogance and kind of how they lost their way. And this is what was happening. And I think Dooku and Anakin in different times in their lives, you could say they took it too far, they had good intentions, but whatever. But I think they were too uppity themselves on how the Jedi should be, So when no one was listening, they're like, okay, screw this, I'm out. You start killing everyone, right?
They're extremists, right? Quite frankly,
Right.
like, again, like you're saying, Steve, they're not wrong, right? There was
They're
corruption.
not.
There was like the Jedi were being used as tools,
Mhm.
that episode really showed it off, right? And so the fact that the seed was planted in Dooku in that first episode, right, with young Qui-Gon, like you can see that. Oh, you know what? Like this is not right. What we're doing is not right, and so that planted a seed. And quite and you look at Palpatine. Palpatine's like the master manipulator, right? Like you could see him physically break down Dooku. And that
Mhm.
it's called the Sith Lord one. That episode where the female Yoda was there. I don't know what the race is. That
Yaddle.
race is called.
They're like the
And
Yoda race. Yeah, I love
Yaddle,
this
yeah.
this shot here.
yeah,
Look at Palpatine in the background. Well,
Yeah.
Darth Sidious, I guess, here, but in the background where he's telling him, like, killer, kind of, and is very cool. It's the same thing. It's the same torment. Like, I got to do this for the right thing, and it's not the
yeah.
right thing.
And again, the
That
intentions of what
3-episode
Dooku.
arc was phenomenal.
Well,
Mm.
exactly right. And again, like Steve said, it's a lot of parody to the Anakin fall, right? The right intentions, just misguided and manipulated, and just how torturous was. You could see Dooku breaking down in that episode. He was breaking down mentally, right? You could see it in his eyes. Like it's animated, but you could see it. And what sorry, Darth Sidious do in the background? He smiled like a
Yeah.
clown,
Do
right?
it.
Do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Right?
Like,
Like
I love how that episode almost exactly mirrored Anakin's like full commitment to the dark side, right? They were given the same choice of killing a Jedi master and then a battle between morals. They're still holding on to their ideals, and it's no, you gotta. He pushes them to fully commit, and then in both cases, it's rise.
exactly, right? Well, even the whole conversation they were having with each other, like the whole thing of Qui-Gon getting killed, right? Getting killed off. Like, he's like Palpatine like kind of did it because, well, you want to team up against me sort of thing, right? Like it's all kind of like planned, you know what I'm saying? Like that's how smart he was or how dastardly evil he was. Like he was playing both sides. It just showed more how he was in control of every single chess piece out there.
And
Mhm.
that's a scene I thought was really sad after, like, they kind of time jump and I didn't realize until you get into it. And you're like, oh, right. Qui-Gon was killed and stuff. And you have Dooku standing at that tree. And it's very like the music and the whole scene with the petals falling. It felt, again, it's always the influence that especially Dave Filoni does. It felt very samurai.
Mm-hmm.
And he's standing there, and that's when he's telling Yaddle about that story about how he brought Qui-Gon to this tree, and Qui-Gon was obsessed. Like he just thought it was the greatest thing because he grew up in Coruscant. He was born and grew up in Coruscant, right? It was just nothing but buildings and steel and stuff like that. And so he was always fascinated by this tree. So he was remembering his friend, and then you could just tell when he lets him go, where he's like, well, he's at one with the Force now. So, and then he kind of moves on, right? Because he's on his mission, and he's also, it just adds to his, I don't know what it adds to his anger or not, because he was still kind of pissed at Palpatine for letting Maul kill him. And,
I think that
he
was the
actually
last
said,
shred. The last shred of hope Dooku had was Qui-Gon being alive and being that voice of reason, that better, calmer Jedi, so to speak. And you could see how actually central Qui-Gon was to the story, and how things would be very, very different for Palpatine if Qui-Gon were to survive, because he was the child, the son to Dooku, with the result, like his death being the result of his full, complete devotion to the dark side. And then, like Filoni said, talking about the duel of fates, in that Qui-Gon was supposed to be the father figure for Anakin, the one he needed to guide him. So things would have turned out very different. It's interesting after watching these to see how central Qui-Gon's death was to Palpatine's overall plan. He needed him to die in order for all of these things to line up. and if he didn't, then it would be a very, very, very different story.
And that's what I want to do. I want to tip my hat to Filoni. Just a simple fact that he's going, he's telling backstories leading up to the film franchises, right? But he's connecting it really well. When you have somebody else steering the ship, let's say the Obi-Wan series, where you have Leia who's 10 years old but doesn't remember anything. You know what I'm saying? Where it gets kind of muddy, right? But Filoni does a really good job of making things fit in. And it makes sense. It doesn't destroy the continuity, or you have to forget about something because, what I'm saying, like again, the fact how he's making all the stories click, and like you're saying, Adam, like how it opens up a bigger picture about what it meant for Qui-Gon to die, and what effect that had on Dooku. Like you said, lost hope. Right, so I think that was his last thing, because Qui-Gon pulled him out of that first episode. He had a nice little talk in the second episode, and you can see that he was a crutch for him. Like, not a crutch, but that the glimmer of hope, the glimmer of light, and when he lost it was extinguished, and therefore made Palpatine look a lot more,
Right. And Qui-Gon, you could see a little bit of Dooku in him when he was Qui-Gon, like when we saw him, when he was older, when we saw him in the prequels. Because I remember Obi-Wan, when he was getting mad at Qui-Gon, saying, just do what the council says. Like, if you didn't fight against them so much, you'd be on the council. And Dooku was the same way, right? He disagreed with their stuff. The difference is Dooku let his emotions go, where Qui-Gon just kind of got in trouble, but he stayed in line because he was that rebel, no pun intended, rebel Jedi who maybe, where they thought he was not being obedient or losing his way because he was arguing with the council, that he was the one who was actually doing what Jedi should be doing, and the rest of them were so caught up in the politics of it all. So I thought it just certain things, like there was that one scene after they, with the senator's son that they save I had to point this out, when they're walking through the town, when they first get there, and all the doors, people are closing windows. It reminded me of that, the Johnny Depp Sleepy Hollow that I just watched on Halloween. It kind of had that same feel. But anyways, lost my train of thought. Anyways.
I love how over the course of that 3-episode arc too, you can fully see his ideology solidify, right? Like initially they were sent by the Jedi, not the council, right? It was a private mission, or the senators. They were sent by the Jedi, not the Republic, to go and investigate. And for them to be like boots on the ground, especially Dooku, who had a rich upbringing, and Qui-Gon, who's raised in Coruscant, for them to be boots on the ground to see the actual harsh reality that the people of these planet are living in, the conditions that they're living in, that they have to actually capture their own senator's son to have their voices heard. And then you see him start to question, well, who do the Jedi serve? Is it the people or the senators that are supposedly representing the people? And that huge, like that level of distinction, I think is huge for his whole arc, because in the next episode, it's that same difference between, his philosophy and Mace Windu's philosophies. Who do the Jedi really serve? Whose interests do the Jedi Council really serve? Is it the actual people of the Republic that the ideology of the Jedi should help? They should be neutral, or is it the interests of the senators in the Republic? So you see, like Mace Windu play by the book, play, by the rules of the
Mace.
the council.
Mace, by the way, for the record, Mace was a little snitch during that episode. Okay, he was a little snitch because basically Mace got onto the council and not Dooku because of his actions during that mission, apparently.
Yes.
So who told what happened? Mace the snitch.
I think that was another difference, right? Like, and we saw that with, like we were saying, with Qui-Gon, and why he didn't get on the council is because if he just did what they said, like Dooku doesn't do what the council says, right? He has his own internal motivations, and he will follow them to do what he believes is right. Where Mace is very play by the rules. This is the council's orders. This is what we're here to do. And the council saw that and clearly promoted him. And then that further solidified Dooku's ideology of like, okay, they clearly want to like rule follower, and they don't want someone to actually investigate. And then in the final one, the Sith Lord, when Qui-Gon warns the council about a Sith Lord, and Dooku's like, oh my goodness, he found one. And then fast forward, Qui-Gon's dead. And it's like, okay, you, the council, did not listen to a direct warning from my Padawan. It's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was it. And yeah, I think part of what Mace had said to him, it's because his actions, they blamed him for the senator being killed during that the investigation, where all the guards were.
Yeah.
The ones that killed that other Master Jedi. But it's because he was hard. Like I think that he had the same kind of technique as Anakin. They were like when they first get to the planet and they go to the bar, and he's got this attitude like they're trying to find this senator's son, and like this scene, where they're in the bar and then he pulls out his lightsaber and sticks it on the table, like you would see someone with a gun. Like in our movies, they put a gun down and say, okay, let me ask you that question again. The same kind of thing, the force choking, all that kind of stuff that he was doing, which I was like, ooh, this is, even though you're not supposed to be intrigued by it, I was like, ooh, this is cool, because Christopher Lee loved him as the actor, right? But you're right, Todd, we didn't really know Dooku, the character and stuff. I mean, he was an imposing, tall. I mean, he's like 6'5", 6'6" or something. But with watching this, I was like, ooh, I really like Dooku. It's too bad he couldn't have held it together, because he would have been nasty. He would have been quite a strong guy.
But villains with tragic backgrounds make them much more interesting, right? Like,
Yes.
like that. That's what I think they're doing. Like what Filoni's doing with the storytelling here, he's making the prequels better. You know what I'm saying? Because there's now he's filling in backstories we didn't know, and now it's expanding those stories. Like what Lucas couldn't do in 3 short movies, Filoni's doing. Again, 16 minutes, just like 3 episodes, 16 minutes, which comes out to what? 45 minutes of content all about Dooku, about how he flipped, right? It opens up so much more about what that was, the character. So you can appreciate him a lot more.
I really appreciate they didn't do 22 full episodes to get to this point. I like the short.
No,
me too. Yeah,
they didn't have to. Yeah, I just don't know. I thought it was so good. It didn't stretch out. There's no filler episodes. There's no nothing. It was just right to the point. And they can still dive in more. They can dive in more if they want to. But again, they didn't need to. It's just amazing storytelling that made other movies make more sense, and other shows. It just made everything else better. It made the whole universe storyline better, I thought.
Can I throw a wrench in a little bit? We're about halfway through it, so I want to throw a little wrench in.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
To be that guy before we get back onto, because all I want to do is kiss and hug this series. But I want to do.
Don't say one bad thing, Steve. We're going to try to cancel you.
No, say it. I want to know.
The one thing I want to do this. Okay, one thing.
You do it.
So
what is it?
The sad episode, the Sith Lord episode, right? Fighting Yaddle, she tried everything to save him, blah blah blah. So they're in this fight. He knocks her into this doorway thing, right? And so then he uses the Force, pulls down the door, crushes her. I'm like, ooh, Lucasfilm, look at you being all like telling us to shut up about the Bad Batch and nothing ever happening to anybody. Good for you. And then 5 seconds later, the big and I thought, because then she comes out, forcing the door off her. She wasn't crushed by it. She rolls out, says one more thing, and gets killed by him anyways. I thought it was less impactful or shocking.
No,
for that to happen.
I
think they wanted to give her. I think they wanted they wanted to give her this kind of like epic going out instead of just being crushed, which I thought was like, oh, okay,
No,
that's
no,
literally what I said. I was like, oh,
it
okay,
had
is this what
nothing to
happened?
do with her showing how much Sidious is in controlling Dooku. Because what's worse, him crushing her with using the force pole, or him having to go physically and chop off her head with a
But he
lightsaber?
was still fighting her. He still fought her. He
No,
didn't
dude,
go,
it
I
was
can't do it. I can't do it. He
no, it
fought
was
her
she's
hard.
suffering. She's not. She wasn't even fighting back, and he went and sliced her head off. Like
Oh
that's a
yeah.
mental. That's it. Not had nothing to do with
But
her. Her coming
crushing
out was
her,
just to show how much Dooku was lost, and how and what Palpatine do. That's like like he was laughing. He loved it. It just showed how menacing he was, and how much of a puppet master he was over Dooku.
it's the whole double death
And
thing I thought was like,
no,
It
we
was
needed that
no.
part too, because that is a direct like narrative mirror to Anakin's fall too. Do you remember the fight with Anakin? And then he's on the fence. He's, what do I do? And then Mace Windu's like ready to go, and then chops off his arm. Boom! And then Anakin's like, "What have I done?" And it's Rise. It was the exact same, right? He's still kind of and then he goes up to her. What does Palpatine say? Do it. And then it's Rise. So I thought it was a perfect narrative
right.
mirror of Anakin's fall, Dooku's fall. It
But
had to happen so we can
he
see the puppet master pull the strings.
he already did that when she showed up, and mostly the two of them were having the conversation. Like she's like, you can't be this way, and let's join me and we'll take out this bad guy and stuff. And he's thinking about it, and then he's like, do it, or whatever he said. Like, remember you told me this and this and that. So he was doing that, just like he was telling Anakin to cut Dooku's head off, or when he was like, when he stopped Mace and all this other kind of stuff. Go kill the kids. It was all the same thing. And then he was fighting. He could have stopped at any time, but he was fighting, and she was still trying to convince him to not fight and kill her. And then he gets the upper hand and then crushes her. And I thought it was shocking for a Disney show.
Crushing was nothing compared to cutting her head off, dude. Like crushing's nothing. It's off camera.
Okay, what
He
I'm saying
cut her
is
head
pick,
off.
Yeah.
what I'm saying is pick one or the other. Like he could have got the best of her, and she could have been like tired. Like he could have been force choking her and then cut her head off. But I thought the door crushing was sort of comical for a death, because I was literally saying, oh, this is how they're doing it. It was kind of funny and shocking to me, and I was like, oh, okay, he's really fallen now. So they could have at least done it one or the other, not both. I thought both made it kind of funny to me. Sorry, the first.
Well, you're not saying I disagree. I thought her coming back again. I was surprised she came back, but to me, it made it more savage. The fact that he still meant you go take care of her, and he walked over, lit the lightsaber, and then shot. Like that just makes it so much worse. Like as an event, and just how Dooku's now like Adam said, do it. Your Rise. The whole thing. He's mine. Sidious owns Dooku now. That's the pivotal. That's a breaking point. That's a turning point where it just like you could see when Dooku's walking to do it. His face, like it was torturous for him. And I just thought that was a huge character shift, and that just really made the whole entire scene so much more disastrous for that character.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with Todd there. I think these 3 episodes, I think the crush was necessary 100%, but I definitely have to give Filoni just more credit, like we talked about. I mean, Christopher Lee introduced the character, absolutely phenomenal, right? You don't get backstory, but still, anything Christopher Lee does is phenomenal. But
hey, don't get me wrong. This doesn't even take a fraction of a mark away for me. It's like I just thought that scene was a little weird, but it's still, for me, it's like 100% for the series. It's just like,
yes,
man, it's like one of those things before it was called hate, where you can go, I didn't like that scene. I thought it was weird. and you guys go, yeah, I disagree with you, but you don't call me a Nazi and we're still friends.
Well, I don't think you're a Nazi.
And I
just
still love the show, and the final, I guess that would be the final fall of Dooku at that point. But I was expecting him to say, did I miss that? Did he say, Darth Tyrannus? Because he did that to
I was
Anakin.
hoping he
He's
would.
like,
He didn't say that. He
He didn't
didn't
do that,
say
no.
Darth Tyrannus. I was hoping he would. I think that would have
Yeah,
been a
okay.
cool touch, because that's what
'Cause-
Palpatine says to Anakin, right? Rise,
Yeah.
Lord Vader.
Yes.
I thought that would have been a really cool touch, but no, they didn't do it.
Unless they missed it or something, or that didn't come later. But that would make sense that it came then, because that's also kind of a con, right? That I felt he did with Anakin when he's like, "Rise, Lord Vader." It was kind of like that. Good job. Here's your medal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Where
like
he might not even thought it. He was just like,
yeah,
okay, because that's all Anakin wanted was a prize, right? He wanted to be on the council. He was on the council, but he was forced onto the council, but he was not a master. And that's all he wanted was that badge. You know what I mean, or whatever you want to call it,
validation,
that title, right? Validation.
Yeah.
And Palpatine knew this, right? He was always in his ear, like, "Oh, I don't know why you're not a master. You're way better than all of them." And he's like, "Yeah, dude, I am." So, and well, except for Yoda, maybe he was, but
we should have Steve narrate the prequel trilogy. Yeah, dude,
Yeah, we
I'm
should,
better
eh?
than those idiots.
I just think that's like Palpatine. Like this goes without saying, he's very, very smart, evilly smart, right? Where he knows. Well, that's why he's a politician too. He knows what people want to hear, and he does that. So that's what Anakin wanted to hear. Oh, now I'm a Lord something. But yeah, I don't know if the timing was wrong or they missed that, but he should have been called Lord Tyrannus then.
Yeah, that would have been cool. There's one other thing I just want to add to that. I think it also not only does it give it Dooku really good backstory for the prequel trilogy, but I think it also fleshes out his backstory for the Clone Wars as well. Just thinking back to that ideology of who should the council, who should the Jedi Order serve? Is it the people or is it the senators, right? And Dooku ends up becoming the leader of the separatists too, right? So that idea that we should be breaking away for our best interest, I think that also aligns with his beliefs. And we don't really get that in the Clone Wars too. We just sort of see Dooku as the leader of the separatists. So now we sort of know that actually makes sense with his beliefs. It's not just a role he was put into because he's the next Sith apprentice.
And that's what I'm saying
Right.
before, like I said earlier, like just how I find 6 short episodes made the prequels and everything else attached to it so much better. It just shedding some more light, some backstory on these characters that had played pivotal roles in the movie and the TV series. Now we know a little bit more, and it was very, very strong.
Yeah, and this series has even made Dooku stronger for me. Like it's weird to say, oh, he's one of my favorite characters or whatever, but because without getting into the other stuff, he seems more fleshed out and more human at this point.
I feel like I have a much bigger appreciation for Dooku now than I ever had before. Before he's the bad guy, didn't know anything about him. I didn't really have a lot of emotional attachment to him, but now his character's fleshed out. Now I'm going, oh, he's a cool character. Like, because before I didn't, again, I didn't really care. He's a bad guy. Okay, whatever. It's Christopher Lee. Awesome. But, again, I just didn't have that emotional attachment to him sort of thing. But yeah, now it's like
100%. Dooku, and I think even Qui-Gon, those two like young episodes, young Qui-Gon, those two jumped up several spots on my favorite list.
And it's 2 episodes, right? And in one of the episodes, he was barely in, right? A little conversation, there's a Sith Lord. I discovered a Sith Lord. That was really short. And then boom, title page, and he was gone. He was dead, right? Rest of the episode. But like that one episode with him and Dooku was so strong, so good, and just it was just, like I said, I remember just had tears in my eyes. It was just the characters were so strong. Just how this young Padawan pleading to his master to let him go, and he wouldn't listen. He was so lost in his rage. It was Yeah, it was good.
It'd be amazing to, like you were saying, Adam, about if Qui-Gon had lived and Dooku still kind of went that way, and if it was Qui-Gon, Anakin, and Obi-Wan that caught up with him in that hangar, if Qui-Gon would have been able to talk sense into him, you know what I mean?
Totally.
Because at least Qui-Gon was like almost like a son to him, as much
Yeah.
as the Jedi could do that, right? Like Qui-Gon would have been that father figure for Anakin that he needed, but instead, and not to say anything about Obi-Wan, he got a brother.
Yeah.
Instead of a father, right? And the
Yeah.
Jedi, everyone's like brothers, right? So I think that Anakin was at a point in his life and later on where he needed a father figure, but the Jedi don't do that. But I just wonder if Qui-Gon would have been able to pull him back. It was like a son
If we
pleading with
ever
him
get
instead of
a
these
Marvel
young
like
punks.
Marvel style what if, I hope they do that. Like I know Marvel got the what if in scenarios,
Yeah.
right? If we ever do that, if we ever get that for Star Wars, I think that's a must have. Like what if Qui-Gon lived?
So good.
I wonder.
So good.
Dear Dave Filoni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, will it be that good? Because everything works out. Anakin doesn't become bad. It's like so everybody's happy and there's peace in the galaxy. Maybe not the best storytelling.
Oh no! Then there's no Luke. There's no Leia. There's
yeah, exactly. It's like okay, well,
they could have ended up differently, right? Like if that still happened and maybe Anakin felt comfortable enough to come forward to Qui-Gon, if Qui-Gon was the father figure and said, hey, Dad, I'm in trouble. Here's what happened. And he said, yeah, no problem. Let's handle it. Even if you leave the Jedi Order, that's cool. And maybe he would have, and they would have had a family too. Right? Like who knows what could have happened? That would have been
Qui-Gon could have been
cool
a good liar too, right? Because he just didn't agree with all the. He might have just said, "Okay,
let's go.
We'll handle it. I'm not going to say anything, but you really
and maybe
this,
at that point, Anakin wouldn't have been so desperate for the Council's approval too, right? So maybe leaving the Order to have a family wouldn't have actually been that big of a deal for him because Qui-Gon gives him the validation that he would have got from the Emperor.
And you know what? Maybe Anakin could have. It would have been worthwhile for him to hear someone say to him, like Qui-Gon, "Why are you so obsessed with being on the Council? I'm not on the Council. I'll never be on the Council." And maybe Obi-Wan should have said something like, "Yeah, I got on there, but my master, our master forbid," or whatever. Qui-Gon was never going to get on the Council. Did that make him less of a Jedi? Like no one stopped to say, like, what is going on inside you? Like, I feel for you. They were just so preoccupied. They would just say, like, stay on the light side, stay focused, go meditate.
They didn't share their feelings.
So busy.
They didn't share their feelings lots, right? They need some grief counseling, or they need something to help deal with stuff.
Dooku and Anakin needed a hug. Yeah, they need an HR department or something.
Well, we're 45 minutes in. I want to talk about my favorite episode. My favorite episode was the last one, where we had Ahsoka on the run, sort of thing, and she was, doing the Obi-Wan thing, right? She's working on a farm, not a fish factory, right? And
she's the farmer.
She's the farmer. No one knows who she is. She has a made-up name. I thought the story was very, very generic. How's it going? Oh, my brother, the brother squeals, calls the Empire, which I thought was really good. And then you have this Inquisitor. I just want to say how good that Inquisitor looked. And the fact that he burnt down the whole entire village and he's dragging his lightsaber on the ground, burning it all. Like, it was so badass. You know what I'm saying? He was a bad dude. And
I can't wait for the Black Series of that guy.
Well, no kidding, right? Like, I don't know what his name. Did you guys catch his name? Did he say his name?
He never did. He's one of the Inquisitors. I don't know what number of brother he was, because don't they do like seventh sister, fifth brother? So I don't know what number he would have been.
I would love to see more. I know it's hard because she took him, but how that transpired. That was an intense standoff. Like, you talk about westerns, spaghetti westerns, right? Like the standoff, looking at each other. She had no weapon. She has her hand, right? Yeah. And it it just built up so much tension, and just him walking, dragging the lightsaber, because he just kept doing it all the time. It was just so good. And just how he's willing to kill the guy, the kid right in front of her, and like the whole town, everybody's dead. Like you're telling us earlier, Steve. Oh, Disney, crushing the little baby, the little female Yoda, but like this whole series was quite more mature theme sort of thing. Like, like slicing off they didn't show her slicing off the head, Dooku slicing off the head, but
Right.
clearly that's what he did. And then this one, this guy wiped out the whole village except for 2 people. And I
Right.
just like,
Because he
and
needed
just the mask looked good, the eyes looked good. It looked like sort of, yeah, thank you. So, like, just look at that. It was so, the cloak.
I like this cloak with the Imperial symbol on it.
Yeah,
that was cool.
It was just really neat to see it all come together like that, and just I loved how it played out, and it just showed how good Ahsoka was too. Here you have it.
I like her
Inquisitor
trick
here,
of turning. You never see that
Oh.
much, right? Where, with sword fighting, it's not, you can grab onto the person's hand, and I've only seen it one other time in Rebels, where it was Vader that did that to Kanan, grabbed his hand and moved his hand. It's not always swords, and she actually did that and turned his lightsaber off, which I thought was funny.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like his lightsaber's off, and then she got it away from him, and that was the end of it. But it's
That's
simple.
big in martial arts too, because like everyone's so focused on the lightsaber. Well, it's the coolest weapon in sci-fi, but everyone's so focused on the blade. And yeah, in martial arts, the hands, the hilt, everything is fair game, and that's all part of the fighting motion. So for her to just go to that unarmed, and she was at the advantage. I mean, I've heard like a lot of complaints, like, oh, she took care of him in no time, but it's like she was trained by arguably the greatest Jedi, right? Like she is the protege. She was trained directly by the greatest Anakin, and well, they spent a lot of time with Obi-Wan as well. But I mean, she's clearly one of the best, the greats. So for her to just take care of him, I absolutely loved it.
And the Inquisitors aren't anything, anyways. They're not Jedi.
No, they're Jedi wannabes, aren't they?
Right.
Aren't they aren't they former students that didn't quite make it all the way? That's what I thought.
Some of them are former Jedi. Some of them are Padawan that turned dark.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So again, but just shows what I loved about it too is of how overconfident this guy was. Again, the dark side of the Empire. They were watching, going back to Andor, showing how the inner workings of the Empire. They're so overconfident.
Yeah.
Yes, I think this was a great week. The great 2 weeks actually with Andor and this to show the overconfidence of the Empire, absolutely, and to show the actual savageness of the Empire too. Like I don't think we see a lot of that in the movies and in the shows, is just how ruthless the Empire actually is. And I think in these last 2 weeks with the Star Wars content we've had, we definitely see that now. Like this Inquisitor came in, like you said, Todd, and just burned and killed everything on a rumor.
A rumor. There was no proof that the evidence wasn't there, and he still killed everybody. Right? Like, and he had no problem, didn't feel remotely bad about it, and he was going to kill the last 2 people too. Right?
Didn't the brother on the farm call in that she was a Jedi?
Yes.
And he shows up, and I mean the brother's like, yeah, they're not here right now, but they'll be back. But he still burnt the place down and killed everyone. It's like it made no sense. Like, where are they? And he's like, they're coming back. And then they show up, and he's like, see, look, Jedi.
Again, if we look at the Andor episode, remember that when they're going about to torture that Andor's friend, right?
Yeah.
And what she said to her, to the Empire girl, she said, "You're not going to believe anything I say, are you?" She goes, "No, I'm not." So it's the same thing. No matter what he said, the Inquisitor, the same thing. He's like, whatever you say, you're lying. So I'm just going to do it to make sure, right? So thinking, like, you say she's not here, but you could be hiding her and just saying. So he's just making sure. Like, the Empire doesn't deal, they deal with absolutes. You know what I'm saying? Like, unlike the Jedi don't. It's like, you tell me, oh, that's not the answer I want to, like, oh, she's not here right now. That's not the answer you wanted to hear, right?
Right.
So,
and what we learned in your favorite episode too is she actually used her communicator to call Bale to come down and help this family. And I love the Corvettes. They're
Oh,
so awesome.
they're so
Mm.
good.
But
I
what we
never
learned
get
there,
tired of seeing those on screen. Just like,
they're just beautiful.
yeah. I
Like in
don't know
Rogue One when they were
why.
used in battle.
Yeah. I guess maybe because A New Hope, the first time 5 years old watching, it's the first ship you see, right?
Yes,
The first thing you see, it's like,
that's right.
look how cool that ship looks. Again, I've mentioned this before so many times. Even though it's a big block, it looks so realistic how it functions, right? And that's what I just think is
Mhm.
so cool about it, is the fact that it's so big, it doesn't have wings, but it still functions, and you believe it because it looks like it physically can work, and that's what I love about the Star
It's
Wars
very, very
universe.
cool. But we learn now this is the moment she joins the rebellion,
Rebellion,
right?
yes.
And
Rebels,
that's
yeah.
Mhm.
how we now know how she was. I forget what her code name was in Rebels.
Fulcrum.
Fulcrum, right? And then Leia in being involved and stuff like this. So it all stemmed from many people, but Bail Organa as well. But this is who brought her out of obscurity, right? She was just hidden. Now, I hope they don't answer this because they should just ignore it completely. But the question is, where the heck was she for all of the original trilogy then to help uh, in the uh, in the rebellion? But I hope they don't get into that and start changing, the original trilogy stuff to kind of
Like
fit
she
that
was there,
story in.
like she was there, you mean? That would make no
Yeah,
sense if
because
she
she
was there,
still
yeah.
would have been alive. But that's what I mean. She would still be around.
Yeah.
But
That's the
anyways,
thing I think. Well, Filoni's been really smart how he's attaching everything together. I'm sure he's not going to try and tackle it, or if he does, it'd be something that's really creative.
right.
Or
So
maybe
There's a couple things. She was like approaching. She was always on like the fringe, even in Rebels. Like she ended up facing off with Vader and supposedly dying by his hand. And then I think the next season, or even a season and a half later, you see she was actually saved in the world between worlds. So there was like she was always kind of fringe, and she was kind of dead for a period, but then brought back. So
mhm.
yeah, it's that's an
well,
interesting question.
in the season, the Rebels ended with her going out with the Mandalorian to go find Ezra. That's how
Ezra
the
Bridger,
season ended.
yeah.
Right. That's how the show ended. Right. So
Yeah, it was her, Hera, and Sabine
yeah, Sabine. Thank you.
looking for Ezra.
So that
So
would mean that Ezra Bridger, I'm getting mixed up with my timelines now. So that would mean Ezra disappeared right before A New Hope. And then
right,
because Mando's post Return of the Jedi, because we see
Yes.
Luke, it is
yes,
full
Yes.
Luke-ness. And she's off looking for him there. So there's a good chunk of time that he's actually missing with Thrawn.
Yes. And
mhm.
see, Thrawn was not involved with the original trilogy either. You'd think he might be around for those things. So obviously, when Ezra and him went with someplace, that's well, I probably will explain why they weren't involved with those huge Death Star battles.
God help whoever tries
Yeah.
to adapt that and figure that out.
Well, I think if everything's going to be doing it should be Filoni,
It
because
should be
he's the one
Filoni,
that seems to have his finger on the pulse,
Yeah.
understands George Lucas's vision, and doesn't poop all over it. Right? Like,
right? And the animation story team is top
well,
notch,
we know the
obviously.
sequel trilogy didn't work, and they kind of poo-pooed over everything that George
What?
Lucas set up. So
It really? I thought The Last Jedi was
yeah.
the best Star Wars film ever made.
Yes, we're digressing there for sure. But these
I
three
have another thought
episodes,
about Last Jedi, but I'm going to save it for a future podcast. But one other thing that Todd and I were talking about right before we went on was, and I think this goes back to Ahsoka being trained by the absolute best, was practice makes perfect. That episode where Anakin just put her through the ringer and put her through the ringer and put her through the ringer, and again, just the amazing storytelling of connecting the dots. First, shout out to Caleb Doom, who was actually in that episode too. We see Kanan Jarrus from Rebels with his Jedi Master Deepa Palaba there. Another callback to Rebels. That was pretty cool. But to see him frustrated with that test and then to absolutely put her through the ringer for years, like we time jumped years of her going through this same scenario, and then that connecting to the final season of the Clone
Which
Wars
this right
was
here,
amazing.
yeah,
Because
very cool.
without knowing it, Anakin had directly trained Ahsoka to survive Order 66 because, and Todd and I were just talking about this, those exact moves she was using, the spin, the lightsaber on the ground, those were all of the moves she used right after Order 66 was announced and her clones turned on her. She was surrounded, she used those same moves to escape. So in a strange way, Anakin actually helped her survive, which is a super cool thought.
Yeah,
Yes.
it just reminds me. I might just have to fast forward to the last season of Clone Wars and watch those because, like, again, I was a little lost in what happened there, like, but I kind of figured out. Obviously, this is setting up for the Clone Wars, which I missed, and obviously, I didn't know. Like, I asked Adam, like, why is Rex with her? Did he not get affected by Order 66? And he told me a little backstory with that. So I went, oh crap, I missed a little bit of stuff. So I have to
Right.
go. I think I might just skip forward and watch the last episode of the last season of Clone Wars. Because
Do you know what would have been funny during this scene? When she's training, and then when she finally sort of gets it, and then her and Anakin are talking. If it would have been funny for her to say something like, "I mean, when would I ever use this?" And then Anakin going, "You never know," or something. Just like they both don't know, which would be kind of funny for a horrible situation. But I thought it was pretty brutal. And I understood his training technique because in this scene when Anakin comes in and he sits down,
late.
they're like, "Wow, yeah, your Padawan, she's really good." And he's like, at first he's like, "Yeah, if you say so," or I guess he was kind of given this bad attitude, and I'm like, "What's going on?" Because he so disagreed with this test that it did nothing. All it was to me, and no disrespect, this is like breaking boards for a black belt. You know what I mean? I just because so I'm not like mixed. I'm not like uh, 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 a major martial artist, but I did like Muay Thai for 15 years, and it's like I remember people new coming and saying, "Well, how does the belts work?" And they're like, "You there's no belts. You just fight. That's all it is. You just fight. That's what I mean." It felt like that's how Anakin was talking. Like he was like, "This is cute." And how the little thing comes in and makes it a little difficult, and you're smashing the little balls and whatever. But he was like, that was a difference in his training, which is weird because who was teaching him harsh stuff like that? Where did he get this from?
He got it from himself. Obviously, he's looked at the whole scenario, going like, again, he became better than everybody else. The reason why he became
Everybody
better than
else.
everybody else is because he saw things differently. Obviously, he's going like, this is not practical, right?
Yeah.
And so he's saying, let's do some. You want to do the best, get better. Let's do practical training. So, because he never shied away from a fight, right? He never shied away from a fight. He wanted to be in the front lines. He wanted to be in all the action.
And
he grew up in war too. Like he had a very different Jedi experience than most of the other Jedi. Like he was a Padawan during the Clone Wars, right? Like he was forced to be on the front line,
right?
And that was part of the frustration. I think that was another subtlety that was added in there too, is that they had those training droids to simulate battle droids, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's a good test." It's getting smaller, and then he's frustrated because it's too simple. Because that's all the Jedi needed to know, right? They just needed to be really good at defeating droids and defending against droids, and that ended up being their downfall because when the troopers turned on them, they weren't trained to defend anything else, right? All of those Padawans that had gone through have been facing droids, and then for them to face actual troopers now is totally different.
Yeah,
well, that's it, right? Like, I'm sure a lot of Jedis didn't die from the droids.
Yeah,
right.
Statistically,
I'm pretty sure a lot of Jedi walked away from droids. Although I guess Attack of the Clones and those droids all surrounded them in that Coliseum, a lot died. But
yeah.
That
just reminded me of when we would do sometimes in the class during sparring. Our teacher would call it the Shark Tank. So one person would get in the middle, and then everyone would attack all at once, like you'd see in movies. But when he first introduced it to us, he got in there, and we're like, "How's he hitting everyone?" Oh, it's because he's good. Then he taught us the secret. You're in the circle, what you try to do is you try to get to the end. So you're only facing one person. So everyone else has to move, and then you just move back to one person. So it's just moving and then punching one person, and then when they all are moving out to get around you again, you just keep moving, so only one person's in front of you. I mean, it's hard. You get overwhelmed at a certain point. You're not like a Jackie Chan movie where you can get away, but it's just really fun. This is what this reminded me of, except I wasn't getting knocked out for an hour and then waking up and doing it again.
I love how they showed it too. When she woke up, like she was groggy, right? Like she was
Yeah.
not all with it, and she's like at it again, right? And down again. She
Knocked out for an hour. Like that's harsh.
Well, let's go round two. It's like Rocky Balboa getting up after getting punched again.
I thought that was really funny. That one when she's like, "How long was out for?" An hour. She's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, Jesse got you really hard that time." And Jesse's back on like, "Sorry." I thought that was so funny.
That was really good. That was really good. I'm sorry for that.
That
sorry,
was so
General.
funny.
Something like that. Yeah, it was hilarious.
Or yeah. I thought that was so funny.
Like, don't beat me up. That was me. I'm sorry.
And who better to train against if you want realism? At first, I'm like, they're not using real blasters, right? It was stun, but who better than the clones? Like the clones are like, they're probably up there close to Mandos and Jedi and stuff, right? But man,
and they had an elite crew too. Like Anakin's squad was actually an elite crew of clone troopers as well. It wasn't like your rookies either.
So he had the good ones. Yeah, and he would demand that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's
absolutely.
You want to be with me, you have to,
Well, my guess is if you weren't elite, you weren't coming back home. That's my right. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my take.
I get the feeling too, if Anakin was leading into battle, you really had to be good if you wanted to come home.
Exactly.
So,
because again, he was always that way. Like he was never on the back line. He always wanted to be front and center, right? So again, when he's front and center, he gets a chance to show his power, right? Like he was never shy about showing off.
Yeah. So favorite parts in the series, your favorite part in the series. Like, what is it that kind of stood? I know it's hard to say one because basically it's every episode is my favorite, so I don't know what to say.
For me, it's the Inquisitor in that episode 6, whatever his name was. Like just imagery and just how that's my favorite part. Like bar none, it just kind of scarred me. Like I'm a villain fan, and that's why I like Stormtroopers. Why Darth Vader was so good because he's so bad. That the look just looks so bad. So perfect timing for Halloween. I thought it was that's why it's my favorite part, just because the imagery of that was so strong. Like you looked at that guy and everything about him looked bad. Right, you know what I'm saying? So that was my favorite part.
I like the fact that he recognized Ahsoka too. I thought that was a nice touch. Ahsoka Tano, that and like walking towards her, that was cool too.
I totally forgot that part, but yeah, that's why the escalation went up, right? It intensified so much more because no, I'm going to take down Ahsoka, right? Like because again,
he had no idea what he was getting into.
She was defenseless. She had no weapon. Like and again overconfident, right? And that's I just loved. I'm enjoying the overconfidence of the dark side.
Yeah, that's something. What about you, Adam?
Apparently, she kept that saber too, and that's she converted it to a white saber, and that's the one she used in Mandalorian. That's apparently the backstory behind that.
Right. So she took
because she ditched her sabers at the sorry, Todd. Spoiler alert: she ditches her sabers at the end of Clone Wars.
That explains why. I didn't know why. I always see with her green. She had green, right? And so I didn't know how.
I think she ended up having blue at the very end, but she has green throughout most of it. Yeah.
I didn't know how her became white. I don't know what. There you go.
Very cool. Yeah, my favorite parts were kind of the Dooku moments, especially when he's talking to Yaddle during this right here, where he's still that harsh exterior, but you could tell that he's hurt by the death of his Padawan, his former Padawan, and just how the scene looked, right? That whole thing. It was kind of like a soft moment you know, on top of all his, you know, the harsh, menacing parts. And I said this too before we went live. Everyone, I showed this picture here. It's proof that everyone looks better with a beard. and
Could we
I thought
also
that
say how good Dooku is at dueling with the saber too? Like when him and Mace Windu were going at it, because Mace is supposed to be the best duelist, like the best saber specialist for the Jedi, and like to him, for Dooku to be like right in there with Mace just goes to show you like he's up there at the top too.
I like his saber style. It's more like rapier than it is samurai sword. So, and I think I told this story before years ago. We were doing this podcast on this other site where it was we were talking about swords and stuff, and there was guys who were from this Jedi fighting group out of San Francisco, and I kind of mentioned how Dooku was holding, you know, the saber hilt is tilted, and how he holds it like a rapier, and they're like, because that's what it was based on. They went through this whole thing, and I've done rapier fighting, right? Because that's what I thought. It looks like he's like fencing, and so I always liked his fighting style because of how he does it. You know, even the hand behind his back thing. So, anyways,
well, apparently that was a actual request from Christopher Lee too, because Christopher Lee was supposedly a swordsman and a very like a master dueler, so he made that request to make it more realistic to his expert style. So that was a nice little touch too, actually.
And it's amazing how, like I said, he's 6'5" or 6'6". It's crazy. And I don't know how he was a British spy during World War II, being that big. How do you blend in? You know, because you know that whole story, right, on Lord of the Rings, where he makes
with,
that comment
Peter
about
Jackson,
about, you know, the character has to slit someone's throat and what it sounds like or something like this, and he says something like, I know exactly how a man's, you know, throat sounds like when it's being slit. It's like, damn. How does he do that? He's so big. Just, I don't know, but he'd be scary as hell to run into then if he's trying to kill you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
sorry, Adam, did you say your favorite part?
Oh yeah, my favorite
Yes.
part. Ooh.
It's a big aspect.
I know.
All
Let's
six
just say
episodes are real good.
they're all.
The
But
Inquisitor
what's
was
number one?
amazing. The Ahsoka scenes were amazing. I think I might have to go with the Dooku and young Qui-Gon when he's there and Dooku's force choking him and ready to go, and Qui-Gon comes in and right there. Yeah, and Qui-Gon comes in, saves the day, says, "Go save your father," and then ends up keeping Dooku in the light for just a little bit longer. And Dooku says, "You're a wiser man than I, Qui-Gon."
That's what I wanted to point out the last time.
Which is the same line that Qui-Gon says to Obi-Wan. In episode 1. So I think that one was the big one for me.
Yeah, that's my number 2. That was my number 2 one. It was a tough between that whole entire scenario with the senator where Qui-Gon knew he couldn't stop his master, and he said, "Go save your father," to the kid, and the kid ran out there and stopped him. It was pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All in all, I give the whole series. I'm gonna rate the series. I'm gonna give it like a 9.5 out of 10. It was amazing.
Have you seen that? Have you ever seen that the meme of Leonardo DiCaprio in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he's like on the couch? I felt like I had that moment. What was the beginning of Sith Lord when we see Dooku erasing the Camino files?
Yeah,
and I was like, whoa, that was from episode 2. You know, and it's like perfectly connects episode 1 to episode. Yeah, right there.
Look at Steve.
I felt like that was me. I was Leo.
I love this. I know this whole thing was just, yeah. I love that. He was doing that, and he's erasing the whole Camino planet. I was like, yeah, like you. I was like, oh my god, it was him.
But for my rating, what did you use? What was your rating scale, Todd?
I said 9.5 out of 10.
9.5. Okay, I'm gonna go for this. I'm gonna go 10 Wookiees out of 10 Wookiees for me.
Oh.
Wow. Oh, geez, I didn't have this ready.
It's by far the greatest animated series I've seen from Lucasfilms, bar none. Like as good as Rebels was, as good as the Bad Batch is, by far. And again, short stories, but man, they're all very effective.
Yeah, I'm in a full fanboy like Steve on this one. I just thought it was absolutely phenomenal. I had no complaints. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think this could be a good way for them to, when everyone says, "Oh, so and so should have a backstory series, and this person should," not everyone needs to have their this season or full movie or trilogy to flesh out a character. I think this is the perfect way to do it because in what were you saying, like 45 minutes, they've done so much for
Dooku.
several of the characters,
Yeah.
right? Especially Dooku. This is what they should do. People are like, I want to know about this. I want to know about that. 15 minutes. There you go. And the animation group could pound that out. No problem.
What's the rating, Steve?
I would give it. I'll give it a 9.8 out of 10.
Ooh, okay.
I'm the bad guy. I give the lowest rating.
You know what? I did that purposely. I was thinking like 9.95. I'm like, screw that. 9.8.
I didn't feel there was any flaws in any of the episodes like you did, but you still gave it a higher mark. Good job, Steve. Yeah.
But I
Make me look like the bad guy.
But I didn't think it was a flaw. It was something I was like meh about. But
sorry, if you're going meh about it, it's a flaw, dude.
Okay, if there was a season 2, who would we go into backstory for?
I want to find out the one Jedi who started the clones. Remember I can't remember his name.
Sifo Dyas.
Who the heck is that? I'd love to know who he is. You know what I'm saying? They name dropped him again. Who is he? Why do I have to care about him? You know what I'm saying? Like, show me why I should care about this character, this name you keep dropping that I can't remember because I have no idea who he is.
I agree with that one.
What about you, Adam?
Ooh, I'd love to see more Qui-Gon. I'm a huge Qui-Gon fan now, but I think, oh man, there's a lot. Plo Koon would be cool to see, but I think Yoda would be a cool one to see. Like, could we get some more younger Yoda?
No. You know what?
Mace?
The
Come on,
one
Mace Windu would
Jedi
be cool,
I don't want to know anything. Like, I know that they've talked about Yoda's, in the books and stuff like that, of where Yoda kind of came from. But I think out of all the Jedi, I want him to be the most mysterious and unanswered.
Like Wolverine,
just like
the Joker.
Yeah, when I even wanted him to be like the only one that they knew of, because they don't have a name for the race, and like, who knows what Lucasfilm is going to do, but it's just the Yoda race. And I wish that when I saw Yaddle in episode 1, I think it was, I thought, oh, okay, they're just going to be like everywhere. And then
see, I kind of like that idea for villains. I totally agree with you. I think, like, I know I've a lot of people want to get into Palpatine's backstory, but for me, I would agree with you there, Steve. Is like, it would be interesting, but I think part of his intrigue is like, okay, we know he was a senator from Naboo, but he was the puppet master, and I think that's why I initially loved, like, the Joker. I forget who said it. Like, you don't really know about his backstory at first, and then I mean they fleshed out his backstory, and of course there's a movie, which is a good movie. But I kind of like the mystery around the Joker. Of he's just this insane villain that just loves to mess with Batman, and I like that about Palpatine too. He's just this brilliant puppet master that has orchestrated the downfall of the Jedi and the rise of the Empire.
Yeah. I could do more Mace Windu too.
Sorry, Steve, I interrupted you. Who would you like to see?
Oh no, I wasn't there yet. You know what? This is going to be an unpopular response, but because it's already been done for 4 movies.
I'll say Luke.
But I'd like to see, because these are only like 15-minute things of what we didn't see, if that's what we're doing. What about between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back? Or, even some of the stuff. There was a webcomic series I ran into like years and years ago when the site first started. and it was on Luke growing up on the planet. He'd be with his friend and stuff. This is before, he was like before he left in episode 4 and stuff. And I thought that had some interesting stories in that. I don't think it was official. So I'm pretty sure that Disney went and murdered these people that did it. It was really good. But I just thought if they're going to do like little tiny things about story in between, I think that would be cool. Because right now, all we have between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back is from the holiday special. When Luke went to that planet to save Han and Chewie. That's all we got. So
we also had him on the Muppet Show too.
Yes. Which
is the original trilogy too sacred to be touched, though?
Well, as long as it doesn't change, like it doesn't screw with kind of the lore that's already there.
See, I feel that I don't need any more storytelling in there. Afterwards, yes. After Return of the Jedi, I understand. I don't feel like it's missing anything in the original trilogy. I don't feel that way at all. Where I find there was lots missing from the prequels. That's how I feel.
I'm not saying missing. I'm thinking like after he blew up the Death Star and stuff. Right.
Mhm.
Obviously, he was training somehow because when he's in the Wampa cave and he's using the Force to grab his lightsaber. I just wondered if anything was happening in between there.
Well, he became a hero, become a drunk, probably have to go in rehab, afterwards because he's so high on himself, right? Has to learn how to humble himself again to learn. Because he's, it's like Rocky Balboa, Rocky 3, when you thought he was so good in train and, Mr. T beat him up. Same thing, right?
I want to see Luke Skywalker training and running up a whole bunch of stairs. And then,
on Coruscant?
Yeah.
I'd want to, if we do get more Luke, I'd want to see, like, I know we're already blessed with some of that in The Mandalorian, but I want to see more of him establishing the new Jedi Order too.
Yes.
I think that'd be cool.
Yeah,
I'd rather
that
see
would be
that. I'd
cool.
rather see him at his full potential than learning.
Yeah.
Would they go would they go forward like that? Yeah, I guess so. It's whatever, because it's kind of based on the comics too, right? Like, or the idea came from it. Tales of the Jedi. So, yeah. But I think you guys had all my answers. I'd love to see more Qui-Gon. I'd like to see more. There's a lot out
question.
there.
That's a good
There's a lot of good Jedi out there, yeah.
And there's lots that we don't know anything about.
Even
right?
this stuff,
Yeah. If they did a Tales of the Sith, who would you go for?
Well, I'd want to know about Darth Plagueis. That whole relationship, the whole how Palpatine talked about how he turned on him. I would love to see how he turned on him. Like that would be really good storytelling, or potential storytelling, right? To see one person who you think's the underling, and then rise up and overtake the master.
I was like the people that said we need to have a Darth Vader origin story. I'm not even sure if that's real or if it was a meme, but people were saying that, and people were like, what are you saying?
I'm sure I saw recently this week. It was on Facebook. It was like, George Lucas announces he's making a sequel to a new Rogue One. It's called A New Hope.
That's so funny.
I'd love to see Kylo Ren. Like, I think he's a super intriguing character. Okay. I think Adam Driver did a heck of a job with him.
He was good.
Just the character itself, like the son, the Force sensitive son of Han and Leia, just a super cool idea. Former Padawan of Luke Skywalker. I think the setup was really cool. I'd like to see him stray from the light.
I would love to see them fix the whole entire last two movies. I would love to see. This remake 7 and 8 is what I'd like to see. Not 7 and 8, sorry, 8 and 9.
8 and 9.
That's what I'd like to see.
Well,
apparently they're talking about a new trilogy though. Did you guys hear that? Apparently they're in serious talks about the next Star Wars trilogy with the other writer of Lost, not JJ. I think it was Damon Lindelof.
Yeah. Yeah, they announced that. There's a couple of people, a writer and director and stuff, but I almost feel like they throw a lot of stuff like that out. Actually, the rumor was that was released that they were going to be making this movie, and then Lucasfilm got crap for announcing things that they don't really have confirmed yet. And I think they do that a lot for the shareholders, because there isn't, like, there's a lot right now going on with Star Wars, but there's really not a lot going on with Star Wars, right? A lot of things were canceled. So if you're a shareholder, you're like, a year ago there was like 1 million projects you guys had on the go. Now there's 4. You know what I mean? Like, what's going on with my money? And now, so then they're like, oh, we're in talks to blank. We're in talks to blank. But then they're not coming through with those. So I think they're telling people to kind of settle down and shut up a little bit about announcing.
Well, I think I think that their strategy right now is they want to improve the Star Wars brand because it was damaged in theaters and cinematically. So they're trying to improve upon the brand, create a buzz for it, and then they'll release it again. I think they want to take a little pause instead of having something come out every 2 years. That wasn't great and left a bad taste in people's mouths and divided the Star Wars fan base. And so now I think they're trying to just just calm it down, generate excitement again, and then come out swinging. I think what they're going to do.
Were you guys here when I talked about it was Todd and I came up with that theory of what I think they're going to be doing? Like 10, 15 years from now, they're going to remake the original trilogy. If they continue like now, like if it's the same people in charge, like 15 years, they probably won't be, but
I don't think that's
because there was all these articles coming out from all the like the magazines, like Variety, Hollywood Reporter, all these things where I watched some guy who was in the industry talking about it. It's like when you see a lot of articles of the same thing coming out, it's the studio goes to these magazines and says, we want you to write an article about this, because they're feeling it out or because they want to do something. So then you'll have all these, all the Hollywood magazines writing all these articles, and people are like dumb, then they know and they lay off. But if some people are like, it makes sense because they're old and it's dumb and we want new, right? Like, how kids talk about it's like, why have switches? You know how everything looks really 70s in the original trilogy because it was the 70s.
Time ago.
I know. So they try to feel it out that way, or it's a way for them to announce things or to get people ready for a thing, so that I think feels softer when it hits.
Remake of the original trilogy would be bad mojo. I think it would not help the brand. I think they have to continue doing new storytelling. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, yes. I agree. I also like that they've kept the retro futurism, like talking about all those knobs and everything. They've kept that style pretty consistent throughout all of the movies and series as well. I appreciate that.
Except Naboo. Naboo's a little too clean.
Naboo. Yeah, but Naboo's different, yes. All right, so everyone loved the series except for Todd, who only gave it a 9.5. So I'm so glad. That's why I was like, hey, what'd you give it, Adam? Because I wanted to see where it was. And when you said 10 Wookiees, I was like, okay, this is perfect. But I almost said 9.5, but I was like, nah. I would have given it 10 Wookiees, but
Got to be the middleman.
Yeah, that's right. All right, guys. Well, thanks for everyone who tuned in and are listening later. Be sure to check us out on social media, and we will see you next time. And hopefully Todd is not so hard on the next series we talk about.
Sorry.
All right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks, guys.
Bye.